Yo, today I'm going to do a video on how to make an upkeep-efficient hotel. The total upkeep cost is 2,727 metal and 2,337 stone, spread over 4 TCs. The hotel has 10 rooms and 1 lobby. Normally I use one of the rooms for myself, so it's effectively 9 rooms. I'll now do a tour through the hotel. The hotel has auto-closing doors into the lobby to stop non-guests from getting in. In the main lobby we have all sorts of deployables to make it easier for guests to live out of the hotel. Up the top we have the chill section. In each room we have 4 large barrels, a small box, a barbecue, an electric furnace, a bed, and these lights here for added mobility. This hotel has no main TC and is operated off 4 disconnectable TCs. The reason for them being disconnectable is because they all overlap, meaning if one is broken, you'll have to disconnect the other 4 to replace the broken one. Also, having 4 TCs that overlap makes it less griefable. The reason it's upkeep efficient is because the more blocks you have on a structure, the higher the tax bracket. So if you split a structure into 4 TCs, you'll be paying a lower upkeep tax. Each room has an HBHF sensor which tracks when the player was last on. And if the player hasn't been on for a set amount of hours or days, you can put the room back up for sale. The hotel also has 2 entrances so that it's harder for you to get door camped. The main entrance has grills on the top and visibility for all directions and in front of the door, so it makes it even more hard to get door camp. The hotel all runs off 1 wind turbine. I'll now show you 3 of the previous builds I built on an official server, 2 of which others decorated for me. This is a look at the second hotel I made on an official server. Darren did most of the decorations and I think he did a really good job. This is the most recent hotel I built. Decorated by a few guys. I think Rez was the main one to do the decorations. This is the electrical room. Normally it's not quite such a squeeze because we added a few extra lights. We had to put another small battery in and a few more branches. Normally I put some signs around to give some information about the hotel. Also I say only 1 room per person. That can be hard to verify, but ideally you have more guests. This is the first time I built the hotel. It's a bit more janky. Alright, now on to finding the build location. First off, before you place any of the TCs, I think it's a good idea to make sure the footprint will fit in the area you want to build. So I normally build a twig outline to ensure I'll be able to place the full build. If it's super close to a building block zone or a safe zone, you might want to make sure there's a little bit of extra room, because when I test if the build will fit, I don't make the small gaps between the TCs, so the actual build will be slightly bigger. This is what it should look like when you're done. The TCs don't have to be in those exact positions, and if the TCs need to be lowered or higher, it also works just fine. You'll also need to make sure you can put a square foundation next to the TC so that you can use the disconnection method. You may want to build the hotel on the build server first, as there's a few things that could be messed up. Each section will look like this. From this first section, you can build the TC off any of the rooms. Whichever position you choose, you have to keep it the same all the way around due to the TC radiuses. The main door can go on the left in the middle room. However, it cannot go on this right side, as due to the multi-TC designer blocks placement here. If you're struggling for build room, you could try to place it a bit closer. However, I prefer to have them slightly further out so you can't splash into 3 areas at once, and it also allows for slightly better mobility around the base. As your first section, you can place it like this. These are obviously temporary. And then what you want to do to place the second section is you build out 8 squares. Then place a triangle, and then build back with half moons. Destroy this, and then place the last square. As you can see, there'll be a little gap here where they're not attached. If for whatever reason you can't build out 8 squares, you can build out, for example, half of that or a quarter of that and just do it multiple times. So if you're doing it half, you do it twice, and if you're doing it a quarter, then you do it 4 times. If you're real strapped for space, you could even move it over here and start it from like somewhere over here. As long as you build back 4 half moons, then you should be good. Once you've got your offset foundation, you can duplicate the process for the third and fourth one. Normally when I've built each TC foundation, I'll place the TC, I'll either wall it off straight away, or alternatively you can make a little extension and just leave this made out of wood so that you can let it decay. If you weren't aware, you can do this by taking out all the wood from the TC and only leaving other resources in. This causes only the wood part of the base to decay. When you're done, it should look something like this. Once you've done that, you can seal off the TCs. Make sure you put a bag or a bed in so you can spawn back in. Then place 2 half walls on this side of the TC. This is so we can use the mini Satori disconnectable. If the mini Satori does get patched again, you can use other designs such as this or this one here. There's also other designs you can find on YouTube. However, the mini Satori one, in my opinion, is by far the best. As it is very cheap, it allows room for a bed, and it does not include twig, which means people can't build twig on the hotel, increasing its upkeep cost, as there will be no wood in the tool cupboard, so it will quickly decay. You can now start building the main section of the hotel. I normally like to have a triangle instead of a square next to the door, so that the doors are super easy to get in and out of. When placing this frame that has a small gap with the adjacent room's door frame, rotate the frame so the string extends further in the top right corner. Then when you upgrade it to stone, it will block more of the gap next to the door frame. If you don't do this step, it's not a big deal, as you can block it decently well with pipes. When placing these outside foundations for the 4 rooms that need it, make sure you've got it connected to the right section before you upgrade it. As you can see, it can't place here, so you've got to place it from the other side. Always make sure the interior of the rooms have the soft side facing inwards. You should see the hard side in the airlock. You can then build the rest of the rooms. You can make the back door and the front door identical if you want, or you can make a slightly smaller version for the back door. When placing the ceiling for the airlock of the rooms that don't have a foundation here, make sure you attach it to the other room so that there won't be any gaps. So if we attach it here, there will be a gap here. Next, we'll attach the TCs to the main structure. Each TC should be attached to a metal structure that's not easily soft-sidable. Because we placed the tool cupboard on the left side and the door in the centre, we'll have to make 6 rooms out of metal instead of 5 or 4, and 4 rooms out of stone. Alternatively, you can just make 4 out of metal, then place a metal wall and a foundation, where you'll need to attach potentially 1 or 2 of the TCs, or you could just make the whole thing out of metal if that's not too expensive for you. For how I know where to attach the TCs from, I make an alternating pattern of metal and stone. I'll upgrade these roofs now just for demonstration purposes. This room has to start with metal again because the TC can't attach to that room. Hence why 6 rooms will be metal and not 5 or 4. When attaching, you want to place 1 frame on top of the doubled wall. You then place another frame to the nearest metal room. And then place a frame that's halfway up, attached both to the TC and to the room. This tool cupboard we need to attach to this metal room, so we'll have to do it a little bit different. When placing the roof, you want to make sure all the TCs are connected to the internal structure, as there can be issues with placement where it says you can't connect 2 tool cupboards. You can't place only triangle roof pieces in this top section here. You have to place 2 normal ones. Otherwise, you'll get the error where it will say cannot connect 2 buildings of tool cupboards. I like to have them opposites, and it looks nicer. When placing the roofs, make sure to attach to the wall, not to the triangle ceiling. Normally, if you're stood in the middle, it will connect to the triangle ceiling. However, if you move out to the edges, it will connect to the wall. Build the roofs all the way around. Awesome. Now place 2 regular roofs opposite each other, and then fill it in with triangles. As you can see, sometimes it doesn't work, so you'll have to rotate these two around. So I'll try to see if it works here. Yep, works good. You can then place a wee platform in the center as well. You can then pick the spot where you want to put your vending machine. Since you won't be in here too often, I put 2 garage doors. You can then upgrade some of the rooms to metal and some of them to stone. The ones you make out of stone, I'd still always make sure that you've got the wall facing the other guest's airlock as metal. All the ceilings above the airlocks can be stone. And the roofs can also be stone. The regular skin for the stone's quite good because it covers up more of the gaps. See, there's a gap here on some of the rooms. That's the only gap, and we'll use pipes to fix that. I make these foundations metal so people can't easily jackhammer into these guests' airlocks. Also, the wall that's in between one of the rooms and the door I make metal, and I have the soft side facing towards the guest room. I'll remove the roof just so it's a bit more bright in here. Alright, so that's that fully upgraded. It's also no worries if the tool cupboards aren't the same height. If, for example, the tool cupboard's too high, there's many workarounds. This is just one. You will have to place an extra frame, but that's no worries. But it will disconnect just like normal. But yeah, if there's any terrain or anything you need to work around, trial and error with the stability until you find something that works. There's many ways you can make it work. If it's a bit lower, it's even easier. You could do something like this. When looking for a good spot to build, you can keep in mind that there's no foundations on the inside, so you could have a bit of a rise in the center. Normally I like to have it a little bit elevated so that there's more room to place the deployables along the edge of the rooms. You can then place the doors and fit out each room. I normally like to do the barbecue first, then place one of the other barrels. And then place the other one from on top of another barrel. You can place these so you can easily crouch up onto the bed without having to jump. I think it's more important to put them on this side because you're not normally going to be walking up this side because of where the door is. Put the HBHS sensor in this corner and set the sensor range to 2 meters. The reason we have to do this is because there's a bug in the game. If someone slides along the outside, it can detect through the wall. So if we set the range to 2 meters and put it in this corner, then it won't have that issue. Alright, so that's that room done. And then you can duplicate the process with the other rooms. For the rooms that don't have the foundation in the airlock, you can put whatever item fits the height to make it easier to walk across. Sometimes you can put siren lights as well to increase the height a bit. Whatever works. You can use industrial lights again to make it a bit more smooth. You can then number each room. For the rooms without the foundation in the airlock, if the 2 corner materials are made of the same, it'll block up this gap pretty well. See how we've got a metal wall here and a metal wall here? Then it makes an extrusion on the corner. Same with the stone. We've got stone here, and then we've got the stone frame. The frame will also have to have the right rotation. However, if it's not the same material, there'll be a bit of a gap. So you've got a bit of a gap here. You can use pipes to block these gaps. As you can see, it's pretty well blocked. Normally when adding the deployables, I like to make a runway sort of around the edge so it's easy to get around. Also, if you use these pots, it can be easy to change elevation quickly. Just makes moving around the hotel a little bit easier. If you've got more height, sometimes you can have furnaces along here to walk on instead. I also like to have as many boxes as I can, so if you've got any loot you don't need, you can just leave it in the lobby. For deployables, I like to always have at least one repair bench, level 2. I don't have it level 3 just to make it less of a raid target. Oil refinery, 3 furnaces, 4 would be nicer. One of these, or you could do a mixing table, up to you. And then a research table. You want to place an engineering workbench as well. Up top, I put more sort of chill stuff. A few sofas, a piano, hobo barrel if you've got that. This is the electrical circuit to run the hotel. I'll put it in the description below. Both of these small batteries don't need to be powered, as the components that they're connected to don't consume any power from them. You can then place the drop box here. Make sure there's enough room for a battery beneath. Put the storage adapter on both of them. And then place a barrel here. Put a storage adapter here. You can then put a smart alarm in this corner. And a large battery against the wall. You can then put the second battery here. I recorded most of the build with it down here, but it doesn't actually work here because these electronics block access from it. So just know it's actually down here. Now onto the power. I normally do it in rows. I normally do each section in rows, so like all the electric furnaces I'll put on one row. First electric branch can be powered by a large battery. You can then chain the rest of the branches together. Then set these all to 3. When wiring, you can actually wire up to 6 things at once. If you have 6 wire tools in your inventory, as long as you don't move them, then you can wire up a whole lot at once. It just saves a bit of time. You can place a ladder here. Normally go along this edge here. Normally I wouldn't do 6 at once. I'd do maybe 5, doing half of one side of the hotel and then half of the other side. If you just click and then scroll through, you can get all your wires to the same point. Once I've got one of the wires to one of the rooms I need to power, I'll normally go to the back corner so that the wire's not going through the living space of the room. You can then wire it into your electric furnace. Next we can power the HPHF sensors. These only need 2 power. And remember to have these set at 2 meters. Next you can place the branches to power the counters. We'll power this off one of our batteries, as they don't consume power. Chain them all together and set them all to 1. Then we can place our counters and power into all our counters. Next we'll power out from our HPH sensors into the corresponding counter. You want to make sure that you've got these right, else it's going to be counting for the wrong room. So this was number 8, so we'll put it on the 8th one. You can duplicate the process for the other 9 rooms. Next we'll create our auto door closing circuit. You can set these all to 1. Each of these outputs can then go to a door controller on one of the lobby doors. I like to have the wire on the side that the door controller is, so it doesn't look too janky. If we power out from this battery into a blocker, which goes into a splitter, that splitter then goes back into the blocker. This should create like a flashing, so that if ever the doors are open, they'll straight away be closed again. can then place 4 branches, chain them all together using the power out feature, set these all to 1. Then each of these outputs can go to the closed door on one of the door controllers. You can then wire up the conveyor. You don't actually need the storage adapter on the vending machine. However, if you want to, you can wire that into this box as well. We'll power this using the pass-through from the door control circuit, which will then power into another branch, which will connect to a storage monitor. You can connect that up to Rust Plus, then connect the power out section, not the pass-through, to the input of your smart alarm, and then connect that up using Rust Plus. This will let you know if you've got any purchases. Finally, we can place a digital clock and 10 more branches. The reason you can't use timers, especially on monthly servers, is as the wipe progresses, the electricity can get quite laggy, and the timer will actually slow down, whereas the day-night cycle doesn't have that same lag effect. There might be a better way to optimize this room. I haven't built it for a while, so it could be a better way to optimize the space. You can place the wind turbine wherever it fits. Normally I like to place it on the middle. Add an alarm for any time. Normally I have the sound off. You can then power it into these branches. Set them all to 1. And then put them on increment counter. Alright, we're all done for the power. You can then put drop boxes on each of the TCs so you can transfer loot in. Normally I'll number the beds. Bunker 1, Bunker 2, Bunker 3, Bunker 4, so I know which one I'm spawning into. So when you're done, it should look something like this. And the rooms should look something like this. You might be able to find better deployables to get up and down. This is just what I've been using. I'll then do a room return sign and also a hotel sign. Next, you can take a picture of one of the rooms in the lobby and also include a sign with some basic information about the hotel. Cameras now have flash now, so they can make pictures more visible. You might want to lower the font size a bit to fit it in better. You can hold shift to move the sign on the x-axis, and you can scroll to zoom in and out. You can press Ctrl R to reset the camera position as well. You can make just a quick sign like that. I normally include more information on the note. Normally I like to have a few different resources they can buy the notes for. Depending on demand, you can obviously change the prices. I think this is a good cheaper price for maybe towards the end of the wipe. If it's earlier on in the wipe, you might want to do 2,400 metal ore or 2k metal ore, depending on what you want. Also for advertising, you can put these double-sided signposts. I put one on each side of the base. Sometimes it can be nice to put like a water catcher and a composter outside. If you have any spare horse dung, you can leave it in here. And also if you need water, you can drink from it here. For the placement of the deployables, I would advise keeping the level 2 as central as possible, because that's probably going to be the most used thing for all the rooms, so having it central is ideally better. Also for the door, it can be more convenient if you have it on the side that's least elevated, so that people don't have to jump to get into the door. Sometimes this might not work out. For example, if you want to have the front door facing a road or a safe zone. When you're setting the codes, you can set the master code first. And then if you unlock it, you can change the guest code. Sometimes I log on with a second account to ensure that I've got the codes right. If you've got a little bit of spare time, sometimes I think it can be nice to leave a few things in the rooms. A little bit of food, water, and some cloth. And then also have some wood in the barbecue so they can use that straight away. For the rooms, you can put something like this. I reckon a lot of people don't know that you can put more stuff on the note. So if you put this here, then it'll help people know that you can fit more onto a note. Sometimes I like to leave this ladder here so that any potential raiders, they can check out the base and see that there's nothing that you're hiding. Might mean you're slightly less likely to get raided. Also, it's fun for people to be able to, parkour up the top. I'll now show you the auto TC upkeeper circuit. I personally don't think it's worth it, as you only have to refill the TC once. If you want to have that process automated, you can make this circuit. This is the circuit for it. I'll link it in the description below. How this circuit works is there's a timer that goes off every 8 hours. Once the time is finished, it will turn the conveyor on, and the conveyor will fill up the TC until it reaches the maximum amount you have set for each resource, and then it will wait another 8 hours before turning back on and putting more resources into the tool cupboard. The only time this circuit is using power is when it transfers resources into the tool cupboard, which doesn't take very long. After that, during that 8-hour waiting period, it won't use any power. The reason you have to set the maximums is because if you don't, sometimes the filter fail feature doesn't work, meaning the conveyor won't turn off and you'll drain all your power. You'll want to set the maximums to as much as the TC can hold. So for example, 12,000 stone and 12,000 metal frags. You can set the timer to 28,800 seconds, that is 8 hours, and then make sure the timer's going. This is a clip of one of the first iterations I made. Originally, I had auto turrets back when bows used to be super strong, but I've since removed those. They're also quite expensive to get as a solo. Also, I had a smart alarm system for tracking when a player was last in their room. However, that system can be unreliable as it's using Rust+. I also no longer use the auto upkeep circuit. If you have a problem guest or you need to evict someone, a good strategy to communicate the new codes to your other guests is to change the name of their bed to the new lobby code. That's all for the tutorial. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.